Dear members of the European Academy of Sciences and Arts, as president of our academy, I would like to welcome you today again to the final seminar I learned of our lecture event Art Meets Medicine this semester. As always, I would like to thank the two organizers, Violeta Dinescu, Dean of Class 3 Arts, and Dušan Šuput, Dean of Class 2 Medicine, for organizing this evening. Unfortunately, the lecture on Karl Jaspers, who as a philosopher would have fitted in very well with tonight's other topic on Dostoevsky, has been cancelled due to illness of the speaker. Jaspers was not only a philosopher, but he also had a habilitation in medicine for psychiatry. In his existential philosophy and his political philosophy, he therefore considered people in psychological and existential borderline situations. Dostoevsky is also regarded as an outstanding psychologist in world literature. The characters of his great novels are also in existential and psychological crisis. We will certainly hear a lot more about this in the following talk. Dostoevsky's great impact on theology, philosophy, psychology, and society is impressive. By the way, even to music in our academy, remember the wonderful composition of Violeta Dinescu dedicated to a female figure in one of Dostoevsky's novels. Concerning philosophy, Ludwig Wittgenstein, the great philosopher of the 20th century, is reported with the following story. In response to the provocative question from his teacher Bertrand Russell as to which philosophers he, Wittgenstein, had read at all, Wittgenstein's equally provocative answer was Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky's broad impact, therefore,
Recording in progress.
With the interdisciplinary orientation of our academy. We are also currently living in times of existential and political crisis. We can look forward to this thoughtful topic. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Klaus, for a beautiful introduction. And now, Violeta, please introduce our speaker today, our Vice President. Okay.
Thank you so much. I have the pleasure to present our Vice President, BIRGIT HARREß. We know her for a long time because she also came to our colloquium. And I'm very happy to have this possibility because she is a very special personality. She was born in Erfurt in 1957, and 2 years later, the family fled from East Germany because her father was politically persecuted. And it is a very long story. Maybe I suppose one day could be very interested for learning more about her life. It is like a novel, maybe a novel in Dostoevsky style. They moved to the West Germany, where she studied later at the Johann Wolfgang Goethe University in Frankfurt. She had a special interest, and it's possible to understand why, for the Eastern European history and Slavic studies. So she make a profound studies in this direction, and she also has a very famous dissertation about man and the world of Dostoevsky. this work was so successful that she began to teach in the field of Slavic literature and cultural history in Frankfurt, in Saarbrücken, and also in Mainz. She became also a university professor in Leipzig with this topic. She is also a member of numerous scientific societies, and of course it's possible to understand it's a society of Dostoevsky, but also Pushkin, Goethe, Shakespeare. She is also actively involved in the Protestant Church and also later to Roman Catholic Church. She was also politically active, inspired by Willy Brandt Ostpolitics. And she is our president for a long, vice president for a long time, where she is very active, and she has always very interesting ideas to the life of the European Academy. Please, Birgit.
Thank you. Do you understand me all very fine? And do you see me? Okay.
We do, we do.
Okay. Thank you, Violeta. Thank you, Dušan, for the invitation and the introduction. And thanks to all of you attending this last session of the colloquium. My topic of this lecture is the renewal of man, the poetic anthropology in Dostoevsky's major novels. I formulated the topic of this lecture 6 months ago. It is very comprehensive and requires some exposition. I will therefore vary it a little. Due to the time frame of 30 minutes, I would like to take 5 steps. I will explain why my research into poetic anthropology began with Dostoevsky's work. What state of research I found when I began my doctoral thesis. How I found my way to poetic anthropology via close reading and the philosophy of Heidegger, Hegel, and Kierkegaard. Which components are a prerequisite for understanding a literary text? And last but not least, how this theory can be applied to a specific text, in our case, to Dostoevsky's novel, Crime and Punishment. Sorry, I hear some other noises. Please put down your microphones if it is possible. My first step. I have been reading Dostoevsky for really 50 years. Took up Slavic studies because of him and specialized in poetic anthropology. Why is Russian literature so particularly suited to this field of research? And how did it get to Europe and the whole world in the first place, reaching and inspiring readers everywhere? How was this possible despite the foreignness of Russian culture? Sorry, just now I hear loud the voice of a dog and something. If somebody has his microphone, please remove it. Yes, now it's good. Thank you so much. It is thanks to one person that the ball was set rolling. The French diplomat Eugène Melchior de Vogüé. This man lived from 1848 to 1910, was himself a writer, and had worked for many years at the French embassy in St. Petersburg until 1882. Vogüé got to know all of Russia's famous writers personally and could well understand the love that Russian readers had for Dostoevsky's works and for Pushkin's, Turgenev's, Tolstoy's works, and so on. From 1883, Vogüé published a series of articles in France, which appeared as a book in 1886 under the title The Roman Russe, the Russian novel. Each article was dedicated to one Russian author. The article on Dostoevsky was entitled Religion de la souffrance, Religion of Suffering. To what end did the diplomat introduce French readers to Russian literature? Vogüé praised Russian literature as a model for French literature because it was in need. For its great authors, such as Stendhal, Flaubert, and Zola, persisted in an objectivism that cast doubt on humanity. French literature was cold in the eyes of de Vogüé. Russian literature, on the other hand, showed human beings, Vogüé says, the whole person in his contradictions, the whole person in his search for meaning of life despite difficult living conditions, the whole person in its deep faith, which had long since been lost in Western Europe. And Vogüé was sure of it. French readers were familiar with these borderline situations and were in urgent need of healing, a healing that they found in Russian literature. The book, the Roman novel, was not only read in France, but also in Germany, England, the United States, Canada, in Asian countries, South Africa, and so on. A flurry of translation activity began and made Russian literature world famous. The author who made the biggest impact worldwide was Dostoevsky. Apart from his modern narrative behavior, inspiring authors all over the world, they were and they are until today his characters, fascinating his readership. I will come to him later. My second step, I make it short. I started my dissertation thesis in 1986 and completed it in 1991 with the title Man and World in Dostoevsky's work. The first edition was published in 1993, the second edition in 2014. My search for a method of systematically analyzing characters dragged on for 3 years, and initially initially seemed hopeless. Whether German, English, Russian, American, or French literary scholars, their representatives always denied that such a method could exist. I just had the option to read the stories and novels again and again to understand Dostoevsky's image of man. And I made the discovery of a special typology of his main characters all over his work from the beginning in 1846 to 1880. I spent my time with close reading because I believe that characters in literature can be understood solely from the fictional world in which they live, not from the author's biography. Step 3, it's also short. For me, in my studies, while close reading, the world has become the most important concept for understanding literary texts. Without this world, working on characters is simply a matter of observing and collecting information on the surface. A systematic investigation is not possible in this way. Sometimes I will translate in German, and I do it now. Ohne den Begriff der Welt kann man Charaktere in der Literatur nicht interpretieren. Es ist tatsächlich nicht möglich. I found the most important help not in literary studies, but in philosophy, namely in Heidegger, Hegel, and Søren Kierkegaard. With them, I found essential keys to understanding the text, such as in der Welt sein, being in the world, with Heidegger in Sein und Zeit, being and time, as well as the definition of Heidegger of Kosmos in Vom Wesen des Grundes, on the essence of ground. Furthermore, I found at Hegel in his lectures on aesthetics, Vorlesungen über die Ästhetik, a very, very important phenomenon, the general world condition, der allgemeine Weltzustand, and also the idea of the forces, die Mächte des Handelns, which rule the world. I will say about it even more, you can imagine. And last but not least, the situation of despair, Verzweiflung, with Kierkegaard in his main work, Die Krankheit zum Tode, the sickness unto death. Here in Kierkegaard, we find despair as characteristic for being in the world, the feeling of hopelessness. It's not no state of emergency, but the normal state of a human being. Verzweiflung, despair. I repeat it, is for Kierkegaard the normal state of a human being. And so we find it also in literature. Fourth step, it's a little bit longer. Before I explain my method, I would like to explain which texts it can only be applied to texts that are to be understood naturally. What does that mean? Also auf Deutsch, es gibt eine bestimmte Art von Texten, auf die man diese Methode anwenden kann. Die gute Nachricht, es sind die meisten Texte, die wir lesen. To understand naturally in literature means to understand a character's state of mind, eine Befindlichkeit, eine Gestimmtheit. We understand character's fear, character's worry, his love, his anger. Literature lives from these feelings. I, as a reader, and you too, can understand these texts because I am a human being who knows these situations, these feelings, this state of mind. I'm able to be angry, to be anxious, to laugh, and so on. I emulate the understanding of the characters. I read them in the text and I can feel them. I can understand them because I'm a human being. In contrasts, there are texts that are to be understood only artificially. Here, the material of art, the language, is the subject. For example, in Mallarmé's silent poem, Mallarmé shows a sheet of pure white and says, this is a silent poem. Language becomes an end in itself here. This is a very modern process. There is neither man nor world here. I cannot practice poetic anthropology on these artificial texts. With a white page, a sheet of pure white, I cannot work with this method. You understand, I hope. Now to the method of poetic anthropology. It focuses on man and world, world and man. It is based on the following assumptions. Every literary text is self-contained. Everything I need to understand it is in the text. Also jeder Text ist in sich abgeschlossen. Alles, was ich für das Verstehen brauche, steht im Text, ausschließlich im Text. Every literary text is a model of the world with its own level of reality. Also jeder Text hat seine Wirklichkeitsebene, die differiert immer. Ein Märchen hat eine andere Wirklichkeitsebene als ein realistischer Roman. This world is concretized in space and time, inhabited by human beings. Hegel calls them Weltbewohner. This world is experienced by various instances as the narrator or the characters. Also, diese Welt wird konkretisiert in Raum und Zeit, sie wird von fiktiven Menschen bewohnt und sie hat mehrere Perspektiven, die uns als Leser folgen lassen. All of this together is called the general world condition, der allgemeine Weltzustand, which harbors great potential for conflict. Without this potential, there would be no action. Die Welt muss voller Spannung sein, damit eine Handlung ausgelöst werden kann. We readers can perceive the general world condition empirically. The life of the characters shows which value the general world condition has for them. Also wir können ganz empirisch feststellen, wie diese Welt aussieht. Sie wird erlebt von Figuren. Wir vollziehen dieses Erleben und Verstehen nach. Das ist der allgemeine Weltzustand. The general world condition, Hegel says. But this is not enough, but literary studies stop at this point, at the general world condition. But this is not enough to understand a text or to understand the figures or characters. Finally, I reach the most important component of a natural text. It is the cosmos as the order of the world, die Weltordnung. It's not the same as the concrete shown life in the general world condition. Weltordnung und allgemeiner Weltzustand sind etwas Unterschiedliches. Whether the life shown in the general world condition here is good or bad, worthy or unworthy, this can only be inferred from the world order. Wir müssen die Weltordnung kennen, um überhaupt den allgemeinen Weltzustand zu verstehen. The world order is the idea of the text and cannot be understood empirically. Nirgendwo wird uns gesagt, was die Weltordnung ist. Nirgendwo. How then can it be recognized? I recognize it in the course of the action. Men fight with the general world condition. This action is followed by a reaction. The resolution of the fight shows which powers are at work. By the way, in the most rare events, the characters are aware of the cosmos. They are just aware of the general world condition. Also, wir brauchen die Handlung, den Verlauf der Handlung, um zu verstehen, welche Mächte, welche Kräfte, sagt Hegel, die Welt regieren. Und die Figuren erkennen diese Kräfte fast nie. Es gibt kaum eine Figur, die die Weltordnung erfasst. Die Figuren verstehen nur den allgemeinen Weltzustand. My last step, step 5. I move from these theoretical premises to the practical, moving on to Dostoevsky's major novels and taking the first major novel, Crime and Punishment, as an example. Dostoevsky published from 1866 to 1880 5 major novels. Crime and Punishment, Schuld und Sühne, The Idiot, der Idiot, The Devils, die Dämonen, A Raw Youth, der Jüngling, and The Brothers Karamazov, die Brüder Karamasow. By the way, Bourguet wrote in his article that most of the titles on Dostoevsky are very dark and cruel, and he warned that it would be very difficult to sell these works when they are represented in a shop. And the opposite was the case. The French readers bought them and bought them. They liked those titles. All 5 of these major novels form a system that is held together by one order. Also wir haben in allen 5 großen Romanen Dostojewskis eine Weltordnung. This world order is always a Christian one. The end times are approaching and bring much suffering to mankind. Ultimately, however, it leads to the kingdom of God on earth. In this context, I have to tell you that Dostoevsky was no realist, although writing in the period of realism of Goncharov, Turgenev, Lev Tolstoy, but Dostoevsky was no realist. He represented the idealism and emphasized, I'm no realist, I just show the whole depth of the human soul. His cosmos is not causal like in realist novels. It's transcendent. Also zusammengefasst, die Weltordnung ist immer christlich. Sie geht von der Prämisse aus, dass Jesus Christus den Kampf längst gewonnen hat und dass auch diese Welt sich auf diese Richtung hinbewegt. Also diese Hoffnung hatte Dostojewski und diese Hoffnung finden wir in allen großen Romanen. The general world condition manifests itself in different places and in different social classes in Russia. It's always permeated by evil to such an extreme that Dostoevsky was called the cruel talent by the philosopher Strachov. The era of materialism has started so that everything has its price, also man. The coexistence of people show the collapse of all orders. Also die Weltordnung ist absolut finster, die Dostoevsky zeigt. Er zeigt seine Handlungen an verschiedenen Orten, in verschiedenen Gesellschaftsschichten und zeigt, dass nun eine neue Ära angebrochen ist, die Ära des Materialismus. Alles ist käuflich und verkäuflich, auch der Mensch. Und die Menschen führen einen Kampf untereinander. Es gibt wirklich keinen Zusammenhalt. Es ist eine sehr finstere Sicht, die Dostojewski das Attribut, das grausame Talent verschafft hat. According to the Christian world order, man is offered the new covenant, der neue Bund mit Gott. He can become transformed from an old self to a new self. Dostoevsky demonstrates this by combining 3 characters in each of his major novels who embody the 3 parts of human entity, body, soul, and spirit. We call it trichotomy. By the way, that's my own discovery with these 3 figures. If you want to know more, please ask in the discussion. Man has the choice to decide for or against God. His decision is of great importance. On the personal level, unity with God. On the interpersonal level, unity with his fellow man. On the end time level, participation in the battle of God and evil forces. The decision has to include all levels. Ich fasse zusammen, das Menschenbild, die christliche Weltordnung sieht auch ein neues Selbst für den Menschen vor und die Handlung aller großen Romane dreht sich um diese Entscheidung des Menschen, ob er es schafft, trotz des furchtbaren Weltzustandes sich für Gott zu entscheiden. Und es gibt drei Entscheidungen, also es gibt drei Ebenen, die der Mensch erreichen kann. Die Einheit mit Gott, die Einheit mit seinem Nächsten und die Beteiligung, die bewusste Beteiligung an dem Kampf der guten und bösen Mächte. Und die Entscheidung muss für alle Ebenen fallen. Ich kann nicht sagen, die Einheit mit Gott reicht mir, alles andere ist mir egal. Alle drei muss der Mensch erreichen. In Crime and Punishment, the general world condition is set in the Russia of the reform era of the 1860s. It is aimed at the contemporary audience of 1866. Also dieser Roman ist für seine Leserschaft von 1866 brandaktuell in allem, was er zeigt. Auch darüber können wir diskutieren. The story is set in St. Petersburg, the dark center of power, the capital, which despite its splendor and summer heat makes the hero Raskolnikov tremble. He has fever, is not able to communicate, frightens the people who mean he is crazy. Materialism and capitalism have found their way into Russia and have become substitute religions. Money, which constantly dynamizes the plot, is worshipped like an idol. In contrast, there is abject poverty in the neighborhood where the hero lives. The people who live here do not stick together, but despise themselves for their weakness and fall over each other. They devour each other, thinks Raskolnikov, while walking through the streets of the capital and allows his murder plan to mature. He, who is actually a Christian, has lost his faith due to the evil state of the world and declares war on God. It is the age of the extraordinary man, the superhuman, modeled on Napoleon I. And Raskolnikov convinces himself that he no longer needs God. The hero takes the right to transgress the moral law. He slays an old woman, a pawnbroker, eine Pfandleiherin, with an axe, because he judges her as a personification of the new materialism. Also Raskolnikov möchte dem allgemeinen Weltzustand und damit auch Gott den Krieg erklären und er sieht diesen allgemeinen Weltzustand in der alten Pfandleiherin personifiziert. Deswegen erschlägt er sie. Raskolnikov thinks that he is shattering the entire state of the world in her. But then her half-sister Lisavieta arrives, a peaceful, pious woman, and Raskolnikov kills her too, avoiding a witness. The hero has separated himself from humanity with several explosions. This happens on the third day of the plot, on the end of part 1. All in all, we have 6 parts in this novel and an epilogue. So the biggest sections of the plot from part 2 to part 6, about 10 days, shows the process of how Raskolnikow deals with the double murder. Also der Großteil des Romans beschäftigt sich einzig und allein damit, wie Raskolnikow mit seiner Tat, mit seinem Doppelmord umgeht. Which consequences does this crime have for a murderer? How do the divine forces of the cosmos react? Here we find a correspondence between Raskolnikow and God, sending him fellow men who take influence on him. The most important character will be Sonia, a young prostitute who sells her body for her starving family. Sonia is very shy, modest, and humble in contact with other people. She feels ashamed of her sin. But she gets very strong when fighting for Jesus. God is all she has in life, and she does not tolerate Raskolnikov's rebellion. And in all of their 3 struggles, the hero must confess, I know that you are right, Sonia. He, the intellectual, accepts the faith of a poor prostitute. 3 paths are now open to the murderer. First, reparation. That's the humanist path. I do good deeds to repay my guilt. I am my own judge. The second path is denial, the devil's path. My crime was no crime, for my acting was just. The victim, the old woman, was nasty. It was good to clear the world of her. And the third path is the insight, die Einsicht, the path of faith. I consider my crime to be a rebellion against the whole creation, against God, and I have to accept his.
Birgit, we do not hear you anymore, or myself, I don't know what happened, something with the microphone.
We lost your voice.
We lost your voice, yeah.
Brigitte, we lost your voice.
It's not, I didn't
Now
remember.
it's okay. Now it's okay.
Yes,
It
yes.
happened something.
Now it's okay.
Yes.
Now it's
Okay.
okay.
Okay, but you understand the 3 paths: reparation, denial, and insight. Yes.
Yeah, we lost only
Okay.
some words. No, it's
Okay,
perfect.
And so I repeat in German because it's the most important. Die Einsicht ist der wichtigste Weg. Der Verbrecher muss sein Verbrechen einsehen, nicht entschuldigen und auch nicht wieder gut machen. But Raskolnikow has the decision between these 3 paths. Raskolnikow, and you say something if you don't hear me. Thank you so much, Violeta. And I'm longer as I made to do, but HARREß is ill, and so I had a little bit more time, but I finish soon. Raskolnikow is constantly courted by the forces of good and evil until he finally makes a confession out of resignation, not insight. But God does not abandon him. Gott lässt nicht von Raskolnikow ab. In the Katorga, in the Siberian prison, the hero finally comes to his senses and realizes the extent of his crime by having a dream, or better, a vision. The resolution of the fight reveals the divine forces at work in the world order. And so, for Raskolnikov, began in the katorga, in the prison, the way to insight. Now he is safe. I come to an end. In his article about Dostoevsky, Vauguier was impressed by the Russian author's ability to show the inner life of man, his reacting on the temptation of the devil with the help of God. For Dostoevsky's novels are very cruel, and they are very cruel. Vauguier warned women and sensitive natures against reading them. But it were women and sensitive natures who loved reading Dostoevsky, in Russia as in Western Europe until today. Friedrich Nietzsche declared Dostoevsky to be one of the most beautiful strokes of luck in his life. What he rejected, however, was his negative, Dostoevsky's negative view of the superhuman. Dostoevsky, on the other hand, calls for repentance. The new self is never an abstract being, but is always a real man of flesh and blood, so to speak, who has finally succeeded in overcoming the world. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Violeta. Very, very interesting lecture. And I will start with the discussion. You mentioned also Tolstoy as realist and Dostoevsky as not.
Yes.
You know, for me, Dostoevsky is much closer in a way, because I could hardly follow all the characters that Tolstoy is writing about. But I think artificial intelligence would prefer Tolstoy to Dostoevsky. And here's my question. We discussed artificial intelligence in a couple of occasions. And I think that in the works of Dostoevsky, there's something that artificial intelligence can never touch.
Yes.
Your opinion?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry. This was the question.
This was the question.
Yes. I want to explain the difference between the realism of Tolstoy, Turgenev, Goncharov, and others, and Dostoevsky. The realists show a world or a society which makes man. A man is formed by the society. You can say this is the reason. You can explain why a character is as it is. And in Dostoevsky, we don't understand this, why a person is as it is, but we understand it because it's no problem. Men are as they are, and you cannot explain everything. You just can show it. And what Dostoevsky shows, we understand because we know it. And in all of us is this little murderer, I may think. And in all of us are extreme personalities. And also in all of us is the wish to believe. And it's a side where we want to be nearby God. Also, we say, no, it's not. We don't need it in our times. And so, but we have the desire. And when we read Dostoevsky, we recognize this. Yes, we see, and therefore someone thinks that is realism, but it's not realism as in the literary studies you look at this period. It's idealism, It's going back to the romanticism, the romantics, the romantic arts in Russia as Gogol and Pushkin, and it will be continue in symbolism. Yes, and also symbolism we can understand because we recognize also symbols. We can find us in symbols. We understand them without explaining them. It's not necessary. And so I think you are right, and I hope I answered.
Yeah, you
Yes.
did answer. Now for some of you that saw me in the beginning in the dark, now you can see me in light.
Yes, great.
I came to another place, and I'll give the word to Violeta, because I'm not at home, but at another place.
Oh yes, okay.
Okay.
You have a nice neighbor, I think. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. No, not neighbor, but my daughter.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Dušan, and thank you, Birgit. So I would like now to ask if there is somebody who would like to ask you something. I suppose I just try to discover if somebody have a sign. I do not now see anybody, but you can always interrupt. I would like. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. It's not a question, it's more like a comment. I read Crime and Punishment lately, a couple of months ago, and I was struck by the speech by Marmeladov.
Yes,
if you remember, he comes at the beginning, he goes to a pub and he has this conversation, which I think no literature before had anything even similar to that kind of tortured personality who gives and who is an unreliable narrator of his own life and reveals himself as a kind of sinner who needs a confession, who's looking for yeah. And I just wanted to say that it really furthers your thesis that it's not a realist novel because it's a very long confession. It's like around 4 pages of Raskolnikov says nothing, and this person is just convolutedly, the form and the content are brilliantly done in the sense that because he's confused, the form kind of mimics his soul. He's so confused and convoluted and self-hating that the form itself relies this character.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for this comment. It's a very, very great scene. One of the best scenes in this novel. And thank you also that you say in this scene we can see Dostoevsky is not a realist as we understand realistic arts, because he does not explain why Marmeladov is an alcoholic.
Right.
And realist literature would do this. Right. Yes. And here this is the first plan of Dostoevsky was to write a novel about alcoholism in Petersburg, because it was a very, very big problem. You see those persons on the street and you cannot look away. And so because they were at all corners. And so he wanted to write about alcoholism, but then he changed his plan. And but Marmeladov is so important, and his daughter Sonia, who is a prostitute, to pay for the family because the children are hungry. The wife of Marmeladov is in despair. It's awful. It's and Sonia's victim is for nothing, because the father waits for her, taken away the money. Yes, you have really, you read it really. And so Sonia's sin to be a prostitute, she had good ideas to do this, she thought, but it has no success because the family does not get the money. Right. And so no, but Marmeladov is and his confession, right, in this local kabaka, we say in Russian, and all are laughing about them, about him.
Yes, it's theater. Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. He is the sinner. He makes a confession, and the others are laughing, and they are cruel, and so it's an awful scene. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I
also
have
for
a
the
question.
Yeah, please.
I have a question. What I admire so much about Dostoevsky and all the other Russians, in fact, is the deep insight into character, the psychological depthness, which is better than any psychologist would get.
Yes.
And I asked me for years now how they did it. I mean, why do especially these writers know so much about character, so much about psychology, so much about, in fact, the human mankind.
Yeah.
And how did they train themselves or study? I mean,
yes.
Do you know something concrete for Dostoevsky on this question?
Yes. Yes, yes. First, when Dostoevsky started to be an author as a very young man in 1846, he just was a reader. He was a reader of Pushkin, of Gogol. Just all he knows about men was taken from literature. But it is changing when Dostoevsky by himself come to the katorga, in the prison, in the Siberian prison, and he learned there the prisoners. He saw the prisoners and their characters, and he wrote a book, sketches or of a dead house, Zapiski z mrtwego doma. It's Violeta weiß.
Memories from
memories. Okay, memories. It were not memories because it's fiction.
But I know. But in Romanian, for example, they say memories from the house of the death.
Yes.
But in fact,
yes.
It's also a kind of autobiography here, because in fact he made like a lexicon about.
Yes, but.
Yes, he was there. I mean, the souls he describes there, it's incredible.
Yes.
It's figures.
Yes, then we can say it's semi-fiction, because Dostoevsky by himself have seen this in prison. This was the answer, the question of Marie, and from that time on, 1850. He came into prison, and to 1854, and then he had to stay in Siberia until 1859. And this living was very extreme. He has seen awful things in prison. He heard awful things about crime. And on the other side, he was full of love for these prisoners, because they were very, they were people, they were peasants, and so yes, and from this time on, from these years in Siberia on, he has an other view of men, of the human beings. And he's writing also to his brother from Siberia. His brother, he was his very beloved brother, who helped him very much. And Nietzsche, when he found Dostoevsky's translation in French, also these memories of the dead house, or house of death, as Violeta says, Nietzsche said, that's the best I ever read. It's the best psychology I ever read. And so here we see a very, very remarkable changing of the author and of his themes, and therefore he could restart as an artist, as a literate again, because he was the first one who wrote about this prison. And the readership was very impressed.
It's incredible.
Touched. Yes,
it's incredible. Thank you so much, because I'm thinking about this question. What do you need as a writer? Do you need to know a lot, or do you need to know life? So do you need experience or knowledge? And in fact, you showed that you need both.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much. You know, I would like to tell you, you said, Birgit, that he was full of love. In fact, it's true, but he also discovered so different characters there.
Yes.
He discovered there, as I told you, a lexicon of different characters, and the different way of describing crimes and describing souls.
Yes.
This is it's a big palette.
Yes.
It's like a universe of souls.
Yes. Yes, it's a universe. Yes, and sorry. Yes.
Yeah, and he absorbed everything there. So, and in fact, it is not in the book. Is not himself. He's telling the story of somebody.
Alexander Garyanchikov.
Exactly.
Yes.
How can you explain the feeling we have always when we are reading Dostoevsky? We have all the time the feeling it is now. It happens now.
Yes.
It describes. It depends. It doesn't matter what you are opening, in which part of the book of him you are having the impression it's something describing what happens now. Or it's only my fantasy?
No. The situation Dostoevsky shows us are well known to us, because also he's a modern author. And before psychoanalysis, he knew what is inside man, which forces are struggling inside the human beings. And we know this because Dostoevsky had seen very much what happened in the 20th century. For example, in The Devils, Biesoi, Dämonen, that's the best translation. Dostoevsky sees the totalitarianism, how it functions in The Devils. He shows us appearances that we know now, and the historians are working about. But Dostoevsky was like a prophet. He was seeing this, and so you are right. It also, he's a very, very good. He knows very, very well the souls and the characters of women. He has very strong women in his work. It's very special, and for us as female readers, he is so interesting. And the first, you said, he is full of love, and on the other side, he knows men very well, and that men can be very cruel, and he knows this. And also in his reactions as a real person in life. Dostoevsky by himself was a very difficult character, and also because, also to an answer to Marie, he get his awful disease, the epilepsy, and it started in the prison. And with the epilepsy and this border situation, he had also also a special view on the world, and a special, he was touching God, was his impression when he when he had his epilepsy Anfälle, weiß jemand?
Attacks.
Crisis.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. His epileptic crisis, and he had very often this crisis, and this has also a big impression on him. Which author we know can describe epilepsy as Dostoevsky? In The Idiot, the hero is an epileptic, and also in the Brothers Karamazov we have epileptics, and in young texts we have epileptics, but and so as Dostoevsky just became 59 years. But it was a life so full of impressions, and he was so able to express it, what he had seen, what experiences he made, so that it's a luck for us that he must live this awful life, and can show us the extremes, the border situations.
So thank you.
Can I ask
Yes.
something?
Please.
Can you tell us anything about the reception of Dostoevsky's work in present-day Russia?
Oh, yes.
So, and among the young population, among the older population, for instance, and in research?
Of course, I can. Dostoevsky is very appreciated in Russia, also for young people, and for the elder one. Dostoevsky is their greatest author, and so yes, they have him. It's their author. And Dostoevsky is appreciated until today all over the world. And so they're very proud on him.
Also the authorities?
Yes, I was in Dresden when years ago, of course, when a sculpture of Dostoevsky was shown, a new sculpture, and Putin was there, and I was standing near of him, and the sculpture shows the ill Dostoevsky, who is just in this position, and Putin was not satisfied with the sculpture. He was looking over his shoulder, he's looking back, and I see his face, but he was standing there, and he stayed there. But the authorities, I don't find any, the authorities in Russia, I start so, also in the 19th century, of course, also in the 20th century, in the communist, in the Soviet Union, they had big problems with Dostoevsky, big problems. And especially with the major novels, about them I spoke today. But today the church in Russia is very strong, and the Orthodox Church is very strong. 86% of Russians answer on the question, what means for you to be a Russian? And they say to be a Russian means to be Orthodox. And the church has very much to say. And so it's clear, I don't know any other author. Yes, also Solzhenitsyn is not in this way in his faith. And Dostoevsky is very clear. And so he is appreciated. Yes, I just know it from conferences. Also in the Corona time, I take part in St. Petersburg when Dostoevsky had his 200th birthday, and it was a very, very big celebration all over the world, and also in Russia, in all big cities. This was 2021. Dostoevsky's birthday, the 200th. And these festivals are a very good sign how an order is appreciated or not. It was full all over there in Russia and also here in Western Europe.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I would like also to remember the role of his wife. He has a fantastic wife, and maybe
Yes.
Dostoevsky without this wife, and also the mother-in-law who helped a lot, and she knew that he is a genius.
Yes.
I mean the mother-in-law, and she helped so much the family to survive in Baden-Baden.
Yeah. About Dostoevsky's wife is much written. Also from other authors, literates in Russia, they all say Anna Grigorievna is the name of Dostoevsky's wife, and she was 24 years younger than Dostoevsky, but she was on a higher mature level than her husband, because she regulated all for him. He was on his side when he has his epileptic crisis, when he was in the casinos, which was an awful disease he had, when he lost all of their money. And she was also helping him by writing his novels, because she has learned stenography. It's
shorthand writing.
Shorthand writing. Thank you so much. I never heard it. And she was also, they had 4 children, 2 of them died. And she was ever on his side, and really a great wife, a great personality. And Violeta is very right. Without her, we don't know what has happened to Dostoevsky.
And also the mother-in-law, because the mother-in-law verkaufte, she sold a lot of valuable parts of his of her.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
in order to send money to Baden-Baden.
Yes, because Dostoevsky lost all money in the casinos. It's cruel to read it in the diary of Anna Grigorievna. It's very cruel to read it. And she made the best thing she could do. She didn't get angry, but she was silent. And silent until Dostoevsky said, "Now I finish going to the casino, and I don't start it again." And so it was, so it was. And then they had good finances, because the major novels were sold very well. And they had then a good apartment in St. Petersburg. They can return to Russia, and they had a good time then. Yes, but thank you so much for this hint.
Maybe Birgit, can you add something on his parents, on his upbringing, on his childhood, just to the question why he was so loving and why he didn't turn into bitterness? Because I think this it was interesting to hear, and it's so important for a writer to have this loving attitude, I think, for his characters. If not, you don't get them right.
Yes. Dostoevsky had many sisters and brothers. I think they were 7. The father was a doctor, and Dostoevsky was born near a hospital where his father was working, a hospital for poor people. And Dostoevsky, therefore, he spent his youth, his childhood, in the garden of the hospital, where he saw these poor creatures, these sick creatures, most of the dangerous sicknesses, there was tuberculosis, Schwindsucht.
Yeah, tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis. And Dostoevsky's mother died when he was very young on tuberculosis. And the father died when Dostoevsky was 16, a little bit later. Yes, when he was an engineer in St. Petersburg. Sick people, the hospital, this atmosphere in Moscow, this made a very, very great impression on Dostoevsky. And also he had a friend, a little girl in this hospital, a patient, a little girl, and this little girl was raped. She was found in the garden lying in coma, and she was raped. And for Dostoevsky, he often shows that women and children are raped. And somebody says Dostoevsky must have the wish to rape women, but this was not true. It was a traumatic scene. He has found this little girl, and so it was a life full of awful impression. But on the other side, his father has a big library, has many books, and Dostoevsky was very young when his mother learned him to write and to read and to write. And so it is told that Dostoevsky's father was very cruel, but there is no document about it. There's just a false explanation by Sigmund Freud, and it's really very, very wrong what Freud wrote about him. Dostoevsky and Parricide is the title of this article. And yes, Dostoevsky was in school with his elder brother, Michael, and they were not very rich. They were many children. The father was doctor in a hospital for poor people. And so he didn't earn so much. And the two brothers had must to stand in this school. And Dostoevsky shows this in A Raw Youth, der Jüngling, Padrostok in Russian. And there's so much to tell. Yes, he studied to become an engineer in St. Petersburg, but he was not able to do this. And when his father died, he got a lot of money, and then he could say, "Now I want to start to be an author. I want to write. I just want to write." This is a short story of his youth, and I hope it's enough for you, Mary, at this time.
It's incredible. Thank you very much. And just to all, I'm Monica. It's just the computer of my sister, Marie. And so...
Okay, Marie, okay. You're Monica?
You're Monica.
Monica,
yeah, Monica.
Okay. Because here I read Marie.
Yeah, true, because it's the computer of my sister.
Okay. Monica.
Thank you so much.
Please.
I would have a question. Actually, I have had this question before you made your final comments on he was studying engineering and then
yes, okay.
Something else to writing. At the very beginning of your presentation, you made the philosophical links to Kierkegaard and others. At the same time, as historically, there was this time of the beginning with Einstein, the space-time, the idea of space-time, which in a way is reflected in what you quoted in these philosophical remarks. Is there something you would say there is the zeitgeist, the good English word zeitgeist, that determines actually this development of an engineer moving to writing, a mathematician moving actually in some way away from precise mathematics and predictions, at the same time with this being able to be more precise than before. And then you have the link to Freud as well, where there seems to be this zeitgeist, this new way of thinking, or the new way of approaching reality, where there is some insecurity about what is happening, trying to link to the old values, norms, religion you mentioned, at the same time being forced to do something else. So what, or could you comment on this?
Oh, while you're speaking, I asked myself, why the category of time plays such an important role in Dostoevsky's work, because we ever have plots in a very short time. And I don't know whether there is another author in Dostoevsky read. He didn't read only Russian literature, but also English and German literature. Whether his trial to become an engineer, he hated it. It was for him awful. In his letters we can see it. He just want to stop it. And and he was an awful engineer. There are some sketches of Dostoevsky about a fort he had to construct, and it was so bad, worse done, that the Tsar Nikolai I, who controlled all what the engineers made, which idiot has paid this sketch. And so I don't know whether this education has something to do with all the phenomena you called up. I don't know, because Dostoevsky was, when he was starting as an author, he was, as I told also to Monica, a pure reader. He didn't anything beside reading. And the first works of him were translations. He wanted to educate himself, his writing, by translating. And I don't know. I never found any remark about this first study in St. Petersburg in Dostoevsky's letters. And but I cannot help you. I cannot answer your question, I fear.
Okay, that's fine. No problem with that.
Yes, I like to answer questions, but it's so far away when you know which suffering it means for Dostoevsky to become an engineer. It was awful for him. He couldn't imagine to work like this.
Well, if I may add there, only one comment. Wasn't this the suffering of the time, coming back to Roundside?
The suffering of?
The suffering of the time. Freud had not been happy with what happened in traditional psychiatry.
Yeah. Okay.
Einstein thought, well, forget this rubbish.
Yeah. Okay, yes.
In this way, Dostoevsky has another part in arts reflecting the same thing.
Yes, of course. Of course. It's interesting, but I have no sources to prove them for this. But you are right. He made these studies, and there must be something which was well, it's difficult for me because I cannot imagine. Sorry.
Thank you so much. If nobody would like to remark or to ask you something, I would like so much to invite our president, Klaus Meinzer, to if you have any comments, or just we have to say goodbye to this session, to this summer's winter semester, and to invite all of us to meet again in next semester.
No, I have no comment to this evening, but I look forward to the next semester. And I think it will also be in the interdisciplinary spirit that also in the future we will have one lecture from the part of medicine and the natural sciences, and on the other hand, a talk coming from art. And we had so nice discussions in the past concerning the intersection between these typical directions of our academy, because you know, we are Academy of Science and Arts, and your lectureship, especially the beginning of the lectureship, science and science meets arts, arts meets science, is realizing exactly the spirit. And perhaps you know that we are on the way to realize new expert group with the abbreviation STEMAC. That means STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but now with AC. And that is novel. AC means arts and culture. And we will go with this project to the EU, to Brussels. And I hope we will be successful. Anyway, it is our profile. And I look forward to continue that with both of you, the great deans of our academy in summer. Thank you.
Thank you also so much. And thank you so much, Birgit HARREß. You gave us today a speech in which, in fact, we discover literature and psychiatry. We discovered, and you shall come again, because we have to continue.
Thank you
What
so
happens
much,
with
Violeta.
Thank you so much. Thank you also to our president and to all of you. We shall send you the new program. The program is already finished for the summer semester, and we hope to see you again. We wish you health and success in everything you are doing. Dušan also is very happy to be with us.
Okay.
All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so
Goodbye.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.